welcome to Ill-Equipped History, Spooky Season. Woo. Emileigh's got the arm movements going.
Time of the year.
She is a wacky waving inflatable arm man when
Skeleton.
it comes to Halloween.
Wacky inflatable arm skeleton.
There you go. You know, yes. You are a skeleton.
I am. I'm just with other things.
With a meat suit.
Meat suit? Gross. Filled with liquids. And a nervous system. Is that why I'm so nervous all the time?
Okay, speaking of nervous, Kyle and I finally watched Inside Out 2. And we cried so much.
Oh,
it's so good. It's so sweet. And as like just an overall gist, no spoilers. Main character, or like I don't even know if she's a main character, but Riley, the human girl, gets some new emotions as she enters puberty, and one of those is anxiety, and it does a really good job of like as I was watching the movie, I was like, this is what my brain does. And
my brain.
I related so hard to it, and I was literally like, Kyle and I were both just like, we both cried so hard. So.
The kids have seen it, and they really like it, so we're just waiting for it to be free on the TV before we watch it.
It is on Disney Plus, so.
Oh, it is? Oh,
yeah.
Good. Okay, we can watch it as a family now.
Yeah, it's objectively, as someone who works with children and is in a psychological field, it's such a good way to like make something that's so abstract more tangible and explain it to kids, and it gives them like vocabulary. So I highly recommend like families watch it together, so you can say like, wow, like who's kind of driving your drive like at the control center today? Is it joy? Is it sadness? Is it anxiety? Like, it's a good way to kind of quantify things that are really hard to understand.
Is there like chaos? Is there a chaos goblin? Because I feel like that one is the one that drives my brain all the time.
And your children.
And my children. I read them books tonight, and that was a event. Like, that should be an Olympic sport, reading books to my children, because I've got my son who is doing cartwheels beside me, like a rotisserie chicken on the couch. And then I've got my daughter who is talking through the whole thing.
Just listen to the book.
just listen. I'm reading it. And she's like, can I play the Switch while you read a book? No, you have to take a test on this afterward.
This is book time.
Oh my God. These kids.
Cultivate that love of reading.
But I did get the kids into Expedition Unknown. So you're welcome, world. We have cut out YouTube Kids halfway, because we feel like it was just super addicting to their brains, and it was just doing weird things. Like when your kids are leaving a room and they go, thanks, like and subscribe, I feel like that's not good.
No, yeah, something's got to change when your kid is doing that in real life.
Yeah, in real time. I was like, oh, that's not good. And also, we cannot stand the shows. And if we had to hear one more YouTube Kids show, I think mine and my husband's heads were going to explode. Mm-hmm. So my son now has open range to Discovery Plus, thanks to Aunt Momo and her login. And
does he still watch Mythbusters?
He watches the hell out of Mythbusters.
Yes.
And he's gone on to like the other shows that they do too, and then he's watching like fishing documentaries, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for him to get on those weird ones that are about cryptids, and he's like, we already talked about Bigfoot earlier, and I explained to them what a cryptid was, and I'm like, oh, come on in, come tell me you watched a show about a chupacabra. I'm ready for the conversation. I am ready for it. But the best part about them not watching YouTube Kids anymore is that they no longer have kid-focused commercials, because they're watching basically adult shows. Mm-hmm. Even though it's not like they're bad shows or anything. Right. They're just not more made for children. And he came into the kitchen and he said, "Mom." And I'm doing a lot of hand motions, y'all, and I wish you could see it. He went, "Mom." And I went, "What?" And I just mirrored like his hand motions. And he went, "Olive Garden. The never-ending pasta bowls, they're back." And he put his arms up. And I went, "That's great." And he went, "We should go sometime." And I went, "Yeah, we should." And then he just left the room. He's done that on multiple occasions for different things. He came in, he's like, "Mom, have you ever tried mushroom coffee? It's really good for your gut health." And he told me about the O-cedar mop that gets in the corners. And I never want him to stop telling me about the things he thinks I could use, because it's so sweet and it's so thoughtful and it just brings so much joy to my day. When he's like, he came in, he said, "Mom, do we live in Tornado Alley? I think we should get a generator."
These are crazy ads he's seeing.
Yes. And he's remembering them, like, verbatim. Like, yeah. He remembers what they say. And that blows my mind.
Sweetie.
I know. He's the best.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate you giving us this very, like, lovely, heartwarming story about your children. Because today's topic is not sweet or heartwarming in any way. Yeah, I got randomly expired.
You died.
I did. Inspired to cover this topic. I don't even know what inspired me. It just like popped into my brain. So today we're going to be talking about Vlad the Impaler and the inspiration for Dracula, because they kind of go hand in hand. So there's a lot of components to the story. I'm going to go ahead and just give like a mass trigger warning for this episode. We don't start off with it, but as we get more into Dracula, because he is known as Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, into his adult life, things are going to get very graphic. I'm not going to go into like super detail, but I am going to talk about the things that he did. And I am going to talk about how he impaled his victims. Again, not going into detail, but it's not pleasant. And then, like, his rule was pretty violent. So, just so you'll know, there's going to be talk of torture and death. Probably, maybe, like, almost halfway through the episode. And then we'll be talking about that for a while. And then it will just stop. And then towards the end, it's not that bad anymore. Also, because of the topic, I did not write a skit, because I was like, how do I write a little haha skit about Vlad the Impaler?
You don't.
I know. So no skit today. So we'll just go ahead and jump on into this guy. Also, like, kind of it's not a trigger warning. It is a just a notice for our listeners. This story comes from the 1400s. So, record keeping wasn't super great at the time. The information that we do have on Vlad the Impaler should also be taken with a grain of salt. There's areas of his life where nothing was just written about him at all. There's also like a lot of war going on at the time. There's different interpretations of his actions later, like after he died. So there are things that I'm going to talk about that I read 3 different books and like looked up a few things online to get a general view of like what happened. So if you guys say, this is wrong, blame my sources, not me. And I'm just going to do my best. So I'm going to talk about the books I read really quick. Probably 99.9% of this episode came from these books. So the first one I read is called Vlad the Impaler, a captivating guide to how Vlad III Dracula became one of the most crucial rulers of Wallachia and his impact on the history of Romania. Very long title. By Matt Clayton from Captivating History. There's also Vlad the Impaler, A Life from Beginning to End by Hourly History. And Vlad the Impaler, In Search of the Real Dracula by M.J. Trow. So I have those descriptions in the show notes, as well as just some other little websites that I visited. Okay, so before we can talk about Dracula, we gotta go way before he was born. We're gonna talk about the Ottoman Empire, y'all.
Woo!
Woo! So the Ottoman Empire, very, very basic. It was founded in the 1300s out of Anatolia, part of which is now in modern-day Turkey. And then they started invading Europe and the Balkans in 1345. In the Balkans, they are the Balkan Peninsula in Europe. Greece, Turkey, Macedonia, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Croatia, Hungary. All those countries. And in 1453, the Ottomans who were being led by Mehmed II, conquered the Byzantine Empire and captured Constantinople, which I will be talking about repeatedly, and that eventually became the capital of the Ottoman Empire. I think the Ottoman Empire lasted to the 1900s. It was around for a long time.
I think it did, yeah. I think it was World War One that the Ottoman Empire was kind of dismantled and refigured and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there was the whole redo of Europe. It was all right, these new things are being done, so.
Yeah, and you go here, and then this goes here, and then this is here, and then it's do. Yeah.
Also, I want to say, I did try to look up different pronunciations of things. Some things broke my computer when I looked them up because there's a lot of Romanian words. And when I copy-pasted it from my notes, I started getting a lot of Russian. My web browser turned into Russian. And I was like, no, I just need to know how to pronounce this. So I'm going to do my best with pronunciations. So most of our story takes place in the city of Wallachia, which is now present-day Romania. We're going to start with a man named Vlad II. He is not Vlad the Impaler, he is his father. At one point, he was the voivode of Wallachia, and a voivode is a governor in Romania and Transylvania and Moldova. It was more of a sovereign ruler. Not quite at the level of a king. I also saw thanks dictionary.com, it could also be interpreted as a military ruler.
Oh, okay.
So someone who was high up, someone who had power, someone who ruled the town or the city, but was not a king of a kingdom.
Okay.
So Vlad II was voivode of Wallachia. The Ottoman Empire is going around Eastern Europe, spreading Islam around the Balkans, and most of the Balkans are either Orthodox, Christian Orthodox, or they're Catholic and belong to the Holy Roman Empire. Vlad II was inducted into the Order of the Dragon.
Oh, that sounds terrifying and cool.
It sounds super cool. So this is basically a group of Christian kings and rulers established by the King of Hungary, Sigismund, to protect Eastern Europe and Christianity from the Ottoman Empire and Islam.
I want to be part of Order of the Dragons.
Order of the Dragon. It was modeled after the Crusades a bit, defending Christianity from the Muslim invaders. And at the time, when the Ottoman Empire was making its way through Europe, they were forcing people to convert to Islam. So there was, there was that concern there. And also Sigismund, the King of Hungary, went on to become the Holy Roman Emperor from 1433 to 1437. So there you go.
Oh.
And when Vlad II joined the Order of the Dragon, he was given the last name Dracul, which at the time in Romanian meant dragon. But as time went on, now it means devil.
Oh, well, question.
Mm-hmm.
Did he get that bomb-ass mustache at the same time? Because him and his son both, like, how does the mustache go
the
that
mustaches,
far?
like, of all these men,
Incredible.
Are just,
y'all know
you
I'm
got
a
the
sucker
mustaches
for
and the beards.
Y'all know I'm a sucker for some facial hair. I mean, look at these men. Y'all look at our Instagram posts, because one guy doesn't have a beard. I'm upset about that. But everyone else.
And maybe he did have a beard or a mustache at one point. You know, it's not like it's a photograph.
It's true. It wasn't taken in real time.
From the 1400s. Okay. So now let's get on to Vlad Dracul, our main character of today's story. He is Vlad III. He was born between 1429 and 1436.
Okay.
By most estimates I saw, most sources I read, placed him being born in 1431, but, the 1400s of it all.
Give or take. Yeah.
No one's also sure where he was born. Some reports say he was born in Transylvania. There's also a place called Saisora, which at the time was in Hungary, but today is in Romania. And that was one I definitely had to look up. So, but he did go back and forth between these two places, but also I've seen that he may have never been to Transylvania. Again, it's just a lot. Yeah. No one knows who Vlad III's mother was. It could have been Vlad II's wife. It could be Princess Najna. That one was really hard because there's a C in there, and it's not where you expect it to be. It is Cneajna.
Oh, okay.
I think the pronunciation said Najna of Moldavia. And I kept seeing either Moldavia or Moldovia or Moldova. They kept being interchanged, and I don't know if there's a difference or not. So, Vlad III's mother could have been Vlad II's wife, the Princess Najna of Moldavia, or one of Vlad II's many mistresses.
Oh!
So, who knows? He did have two older half-brothers, Mircea II, and there's another Vlad. This was his last name, I guess. That was when I tried to look up to pronounce online, and it broke my computer. He later became Vlad the Monk, and one younger half-brother, Radu III.
So we've got Vlad III Dracul, and we've got Vlad the Monk and their brothers.
Yes.
And I feel like...
And their father's Vlad.
Well, there couldn't have been more opposite.
Yeah. I know, right? I know. Vlad the Monk and then Vlad the Impaler.
I know which brother I want to be friends with.
I know,
and it's not the impaling one.
Right. So, because of his father, Vlad was given the last name Dracul, or he was known as Dracula, or Dracula, meaning little dragon.
Okay, well, that's kind of cute.
It is. So, there may be a time where I write his name, I refer to him as Vlad Dracula, and it is the Impaler we're talking about. So, growing up, he was a typical prince. He had a good education alongside his brothers, typical medieval education. Horseback riding, archery, sword fighting, But his dad also sprung for the finest, possibly, the finest tutors from Constantinople. Math, science, philosophy, geography, different languages. I think he could speak 4 languages.
Damn.
Yeah. He's described as short, stocky, and strong. So this was a quote from the, I think, Hourly History book. Quote, long straight nose, a thin face, and green eyes with bushy, menacing eyebrows. He wore a mustache and had swollen temples that increased the bulk of his head. He also reportedly had a thick neck. End quote.
What's that neck do?
That neck be thick.
Thick. With 2 C's. Oh my God. What an interest. Why would they say his temples are swollen? Why... What an interesting...
big head, I guess.
I'm not going to lie. You described that, and I'm looking at this painting of him, and Yeah, that's spot on, actually.
Yeah. And I think the hat may cover up his swollen temples.
Yeah. Also, his beautiful, luscious locks.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that hair, those perfect curls. I'm jealous.
He takes care of himself.
Listen, he's got nice hair on his head. He's got a nice mustache.
Yeah.
Swollen temples.
Maybe it's...
What more could a woman want?
I know. Maybe it's impaling. Maybe it's Maybelline. So this next part is very convoluted because in two different books I read two different things happening and they both may have happened and I can't tell. So okay. I'm just going to describe both. Okay. So in 1437, the king of Hungary, Sigismund, died and Vlad II signed a treaty with the Ottoman Sultan Murad II. John Hunyadi, he was a famous Hungarian general, he comes up later in the story, was like, what the fuck, man, you joined the Order of the Dragon and now you're like signing a treaty with the Ottoman Empire, our enemy, what the fuck are you doing? And Vlad II was like, So at one point the Ottoman Empire is on their way to Transylvania and Vlad II just lets them march through Wallachia. He's just I'm not going to be involved in this. And the Ottomans get their asses kicked by, I guess, the Transylvanians. And this pisses off the Sultan.
Yeah.
Also, maybe Hungary was like, what the fuck? You just let the Ottomans walk through your territory. And they attacked Wallachia. And Vlad II was deposed.
Oh.
Possibly. So the Sultan... at some point invited Vlad II to come to his court in Gallipoli because he was like, this guy seems really sketchy. He is going against an oath he already made for me. I don't really trust him.
Yeah.
So Murad II, who's the Sultan at the time, calls Vlad II to Gallipoli, where his court was, and Vlad II brought his sons Vlad and Radu. And they were all promptly arrested.
Oh.
And Vlad and Radu are both, they're still boys at this point. They are still children. So that happened. And I also saw that Vlad went to the Sultan so he could reclaim his throne after he was deposed. I don't know. Again, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
But now we're back on track. It was just
yeah,
those two things.
I wonder if he, there was the order of the dragon. I wonder if he was high up in that. So then when he got deposed, he was very high up in a position. So, I mean, maybe when they say throne, that might be what they mean. That he just wanted his power back.
Possibly. So after they were all arrested, Vlad II was sent off to prison while Vlad and Radu were sent to a different fortress within the Ottoman Empire. And after a year, they were finally reunited in front of Murad II. Vlad II had to swear loyalty to the Turkish Sultan and had to pay way more than the expected tribute. And it was 10,000 ducats or something, the currency. So on top of the monetary tribute, he also had to give the Sultan 500 boys and men to be converted to Islam and made to serve in the Ottoman army.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah. And on top of this, Vlad and Radu were held as hostages to ensure Vlad II's cooperation. Which I think was pretty common at the time. We'll hold your family members to make sure that you are going to abide by our agreement. And as hostages go, they were pretty well taken care of. They received exemplar educations while imprisoned. They were taught mathematics, philosophy, religion, including Islam, and Vlad became fluent in Turkish. I think both boys did because they were surrounded by it.
Yeah, that's actually pretty handy.
Oh, yeah. And it will be useful later on for Vlad. But Vlad was old enough to know what was going on. He knew what the situation was, and he was very defiant, very oppositional, for which he was most likely severely punished for. And there are some thoughts that he developed his cruel nature during this time when he did receive these severe punishments.
Yeah.
His brother, on the other hand, Radu, absolutely flourished. He became a court favorite. He converted to Islam. He ended up joining the Ottomans. He became known as Radu the Handsome. He may have been one of the Sultan's son's lovers. Like,
oh,
I know. It's getting spicy.
Okay, Radu. Damn.
I know. He's like
Radu
living his best life. Radu the Handsome. You know what?
Handsome.
He is pretty handsome.
I was just thinking, like, damn, that fits. He's pretty handsome.
And this is like a drawing from the 1400s, you know.
They doodled him real good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the medieval paintings weren't always like the most flattering.
They went from whatever doodle is down here for Vlad II to Vlad III and Radu looking pretty dang good. So can't complain there.
So anyway, with all this going on, eventually Wallachia was attacked by Hungary in 1447 and ended up falling for real this time.
Okay.
How do I say his name? I have to go back. Mircea, the oldest son, was blinded with a hot poker and buried alive.
No!
Yeah. Because he also served as, like, Vlad II's, like, vizier, and he actually ruled Wallachia a couple times when, like, Vlad II wasn't ruling, because the throne goes back and forth a lot. And Vlad II was also killed. Vlad the monk had no interest in taking over the throne, and I literally wrote monk in parentheses afterwards. So he was spared. Nothing happened to him. As far as I know, he lived his, like, best life. Just being a monk.
Just being a monk.
So that leaves Vlad III to take over the Wallachian throne. And he did. For 2 months.
Oh.
So he became ruler of Wallachia in 1448 before it was conquered yet again by the Hungarians. He very reasonably suspected he was next on the assassination list after, you know, his father and older brother were killed. So he fled to Moldova. While he was there, he stayed with his uncle, Prince Bogdan II, and his cousin, Prince Stephen, for 3 years, and things were fine. They actually became, like, best buddies.
Cool.
One of the books I read, just like, they were all 3 very close friends, and I was like, that's very nice.
Let me tell you about my best friends.
And then Bogdan II was assassinated by his brother.
No!
Petru Aaron.
His other uncle?
Oh,
shit.
Yeah. So he was assassinated in 1451, and then with that usurpment going on, Vlad and Stephen fled to Transylvania, where they found mentorship under John Hunyadi, that general that, like, killed his father. It's fine. And King Ladislaus, who was the Hungarian ruler. So I thought that was very interesting. Like, he literally went to the people who killed his father and his older brother and, like, conquered Wallachia, and they're like, yeah, come on in.
That is bizarre. Maybe he didn't agree with, like, his father or something.
I think Hunyadi saw the potential.
Okay.
So around this time, like, after Vlad III, like, left, a man named Vladislav II ruled Wallachia. So we have another Vlad, but it's Vladislav.
So many.
So records aren't clear exactly how he came to power. Some say that he assassinated Vlad II and was appointed by John Hunyadi, and they both hated the Ottomans. So they're like, yeah, you can be it. Others say he killed the Hungarian appointed Dan III and was uplifted by the Ottomans. So who knows? But there's no record of a Dan III. There's only a Dan II who was Vladislav's father. Who knows? Again, 1400s of it all.
It's a little confusing.
Anyway, Vladislav didn't help out John Hunyadi in the Battle of Kosovo in 1448. And Hunyadi was like, well, fuck you then. So he started, like, claiming parts of Transylvania. And then Vladislav responded by putting an embargo on goods from Hunyadi's lands. And then while they were like, okay, let's work this out like men, Vladislav then attacked parts of Transylvania that were owned and had been captured by Hunyadi. And so Hunyadi was like, I'm over this guy. So he was like, hey, I have the former heir to the throne, Vlad Dracul. I'm just going to make him king again, or the ruler. And so Vlad deposed Vladislav in 1456 in hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, disposed of him.
Yes. I meant to say deposed him.
Oh.
But he did dispose of him too.
Disposed.
And once again, he became ruler of Wallachia for longer than 2 months this time.
Good for him.
Apparently, Vlad had a strict moral code. And this is where we're going to start getting into the bad things. So, just so y'all know, Emileigh, I'm sorry you're stuck.
Just take my headphones off. I can't.
Yeah, I know. So, people who disobeyed his code were punished in, well, one of the most horrific ways possible because he was a sadistic bastard. So, my next section is Vlad the Impaler. So, he actually wasn't referred to as Vlad the Impaler until after his death in 1550. He is known as Vlad the Impaler or the Impaler Lord. Both of those are awful. The Ottoman Empire started calling him the Impaler Lord due to the, quote, forests of impaled victims.
Forests?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
There are estimates that he killed between 40,000 and 100,000 people.
40,000 is the lower number?
Uh-huh.
It's so many.
That's a lot. He reportedly enjoyed killing people and is reported to have eaten surrounded by the dead. And that drawing that I have put in the show notes, Emily, that is a depiction of Vlad the Impaler having a nice tasty meal looking at his victims.
Oh my God. I'm gonna have nightmares later.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is going to be rough. This next line I have. Actually, the next few minutes are going to be really rough. But in one of the books I read, there's an account from 1521, quote, that reports how he had, quote, roasted children and fed them to their mothers. This was posthumous. So there are reports saying that some of his deeds were exaggerated to make him seem even more fearsome. But
I'm going to say that one's exaggerated so I don't dwell on it too much.
I hope so. I am going to talk about the impalement process. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I think it really emphasizes how much of a bastard this man was. When a person was being impaled, each of their limbs would be tied to a horse's legs. So they were kind of like stuck and kind of like floating in midair, I assume. I was trying to figure out like how this was going on. But they were like horizontal.
Yeah.
A stake that wasn't too sharp would be inserted through a lower orifice and then just kind of pushed into the body. And then everything would be set upright so the weight of the victim would cause them to fall further down the stake. And it could take hours or days for a person to die in this way. And some victims were left up for months. Like this. Give you a minute. Yeah, it's really rough. I had to take a few breaks from reading the books. So I was like, this is too much. I lessened the detail.
What a psychopath.
Yeah. Unfortunately, impaling wasn't his only method of execution. He was also known to boil or roast his victims. He would have some of their body parts cut off. They would be strangled. He would leave them in the wild to like face animals. He would skin or flay some victims and would burn some alive.
Why?
He's a sadistic bastard.
Like, what were their crimes?
Well, we'll get into that in a second. There's two that were brought up in one of the books I read that aren't great. There's reports that he would arrange the victims in like geometric patterns. Don't know why. And then later on, when he was captured by the Ottomans, he would like continue his torture on like rats and mice that he found like while imprisoned.
Oh my God. Ugh.
So, like I said a little while ago, he had a very strict moral code. And here are two of his morals. He very highly valued women's chastity. If a woman was found guilty of premarital sex or extramarital sex or had sex after being widowed, she would be impaled with a red-hot stake, and sometimes their breasts were cut off.
Ow.
And there are some reports of having the male accomplice being forced to eat the breast.
Ew.
Yeah. This is really... I'm almost done with, like, the descriptions. And then the other one that was talked about was poverty. He saw it as a form of stealing or thievery if you were a beggar on the streets. So there's one report that I read in one of the books that, I don't know if this happened multiple times or just one time, but he would invite beggars to come in off the street for a big feast. And once everyone had eaten their fill, he would lock all the doors and set it on fire.
What?
And he would be like, hello, I have eliminated poverty.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
There's no reason for this. It's just...
No.
He's fucked.
Yeah, he's really fucked. Okay, so I am done talking about, like, his forms of torture. So moving back into, like, his story. Again, I apologize.
I don't even care about his mustache anymore.
I know. This... I feel like when you hear Vlad the Impaler, you don't really understand, like, how bad it was. You're like, oh, Vlad the Impaler, haha. Yeah, he impaled his victims. But when you go into, like, more detail, you're like, oh my God,
40,000?
Monstrous.
At a minimum?
Yeah. Yeah. After Vlad was reinstated as a voivode, he helped his cousin, Stephen, ascend the Moldovan throne by helping depose Petru Aaron, who again had killed Stephen's father. In 1460, Pope Pius II launched a new crusade against the Ottomans in Mantua, Italy. So John Hunyadi's son, Matthias Corvinus, was chosen to be the leader and was given lots of money to buy warships and an army for, like, this crusade. Mm-hmm. Vlad was like, this is a great idea. And he was one of the only European rulers that thought so. I guess everyone else thought it was like a suicide mission. And he decided to ally with Corvinus. So the Ottoman Empire at this time was now being led by Sultan Mehmed II, who was Murad's the second son. He took advantage of the limited European response and captured Smederevo, the last free city in Serbia. Mihai Shiaji, one of Vlad III's only allies when they decimated villages in 1458 who were engaging in a merchant revolt, was sawed in half, and his men were tortured to death. So the Ottomans also had forms of torture and punishment that were not good. Medieval times are really rough, y'all.
God, so bad.
In 1461, Sultan Mehmed II convinced the Greek despot to step aside and took, like, his land in Greece. He was like, all right, this is my land now. So now he just, like, captured Greece, like, super easily. And then very shortly after, Wallachia was captured by the Ottomans and were forced to pay tribute. And it was very similar to what his father had been forced to pay. It was the 10,000 ducats and those 500 recruits to the Turkish military. Mm-hmm. That were going to be converted and stuff. Vlad refused to pay the tribute. Sorry, this next one's a little rough. So these envoys were sent to Vlad to say, hey, pay this tribute. And apparently he was so offended that they didn't lift their hats to him, which they didn't because they were turbans, and they didn't lift their hats for religious reasons. He, quote, had their turbans nailed to their heads.
Ah! Did they live?
I think so. But I'm sure they were in a great deal of pain.
Yeah.
And I really don't know, like, what happened to these people. The Sultan was not pleased, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then so the Ottomans started recruiting their own new soldiers from the Wallachian population, and Vlad had them all impaled.
Wow.
Toward the end of 1461, Vlad wrote a letter to the Sultan saying he couldn't afford the tribute, but he would pay it when he had the money. Vlad asked if he could meet the Sultan in Constantinople to negotiate. This is like spy versus spy shit right here.
Yeah.
However, the Sultan caught wind of Vlad's partnership with Matthias Corvinus, Hunyadi's son, and drummed up his own plot to ambush Vlad when he met up with the Sultan's envoy, Hamza Pasha. Vlad caught wind of this plot and set up his own ambush. So Hamza Pasha and his 1,000 men were crossing a pass near, I looked up this up, Giurgiu, and Vlad's forces attacked. Vlad's army was one of the first European forces to use gunpowder in an armed conflict, and most of the Turkish forces were killed, with Pasha and most of his men being impaled. Vlad wasn't done, though. He started going through Eastern Europe and invading Bulgaria, because why not, apparently. He was just like, yeah, let's just invade Bulgaria now. So remember, when he was a hostage of the Ottomans, he became fluent in Turkish, and he used this to infiltrate Ottoman occupations throughout Bulgaria. He would literally order guards to open the gates in Turkish and then send his men to attack the hold and slaughter, like, everyone in there.
Oh, shit.
In 2 weeks, Vlad and his army killed about 23,000 men and covered about 500 miles.
I mean, absolute slaughter.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
This is why I didn't write a skit, because how do you write a skit about this man?
You can't.
No.
You can't.
No. So the Sultan heard about this devastation and sent his Grand Vizier Mahmud to attack the Wallachian port Brela with 18,000 men. Vlad intercepted the attack, and apparently only 8,000 Ottomans survived. So, like, more than half, 10,000 were killed. But like I said kind of earlier, he was celebrated for his opposition to the Ottomans by people in Transylvania, Italy, and even by the Pope. They're like, you're fighting a good fight. You're fighting those Ottomans.
Wow.
So the Ottomans were terrified, as I'm sure you can imagine, and they left Europe and went to Anatolia, which again is like modern day Turkey. The Sultan was like, enough of this shit, and went to go meet Vlad himself. So Sultan Mehmed II took between 150 and 300,000 men with him. And among the forces was Radu the Handsome, Vlad's younger brother. Because he was now he had like a cavalry unit assigned to him. Like, he was like a pretty high up commander in the Ottoman army. So not only did he have an entire military complement, he had, and this is from the Hourly History book, quote, engineers and workers who would build bridges and roads as necessary, priests who would call in troops to prayer, astrologers to assist Mehmed in making his military decisions, and women who were to pleasure the men at night.
Oh, shit.
So, a full brigade of people. Weapons included 120 cannons, 25 triremes, which are like small ships that have like oars and sails, and 150 like smaller ships that I think were just oared. So we had like a full like artillery and like a navy essentially going with him.
God damn.
So the Sultan was not messing around. Vlad's forces were not even close to the number of the Sultan's forces, and Corvinus did not help at all. He did not send any aid whatsoever. So he is sneaky too.
What a dick.
I know. So Vlad, saying like, hey, we need people, we need bodies, he then forced women and children as young as 12 and Romani slaves into his army.
What?
And even with this bolstering, he could only get about 30,000 like 30,000 people in his army, which is like 10% of what the Sultan has.
Yeah. And like your entire population.
Basically, yeah. But Vlad was a really good strategist, and he fought very dirty. He literally went scorched earth, like similar to like Lee did in the South.
Yeah.
Like kind of burning the South as they went, so the northern forces couldn't get hold of the resources. Vlad did something very similar. Apparently, they did evacuate villages. They didn't just burn everyone alive. Even the animals, they'd get all of them out. They would poison the water supply in the villages as like the enemy was approaching. They used guerrilla tactics, like sneaking in and out. And they would send people infected with deadly diseases, such as the bubonic plague, into the Sultan's army as a form of biological warfare.
Oh, I hate how smart that is.
And this worked.
Yeah. Damn.
So despite these tactics, the Sultan's army marched ever forward to Teragofishte. That's one I definitely had to look up. Where Vlad's castle was, because Vlad had, like, the castle.
Right.
You know. So Vlad and 24,000 troops were cornered in a mountainous area by the Ottomans. That was, like, their hideout. And when faced with either starvation or capture, he decided to disguise himself and snuck into the Turkish camp. He asked around and found out where the Sultan's tent was. Vlad then returned to his men and ordered them to sneak into the camp under like the cover of night. His forces killed about 15,000 Turkish soldiers.
Holy shit.
By just sneaking into their camp, and he lost about 5,000 soldiers himself. He could have killed the Sultan if he didn't accidentally go into the Grand Vizier's tent. And there were two Grand Viziers. I think there was two Grand Viziers in that tent. And I'm not sure if he killed either of them, but he didn't kill the Sultan. He was caught before he could. So when the sun rose, Vlad's forces retreated back to their mountain hideout, and they were not followed. The Sultan's men were like, no, we are done. The Sultan himself was so devastated by the attack, they left the site immediately. And the Sultan himself had to be convinced by his friends, like basically made by his, like, I guess, Ottoman Empire friends to go back, like, into the fray. Because he was like, no, I'm over it. I'm over it. I just lost like, almost 20,000 men in one night.
What the fuck?
But the Sultan eventually started his march back to the capital. When they got to, I have to look it up again, Teragofishte, they found the gates wide open and the city abandoned. And as they walked through the gates, they found Hamza Pasha and his soldiers impaled, like left for them.
What?
And apparently Mehmed II was very impressed by Vlad and his tactics. So, because Teragofishte was empty, the Ottomans just were like, all right, we have it now. And Radu was left in charge to rule Wallachia because it had been abandoned. And they're like, all right, easy peasy. We just have to walk past like 20,000 dead men that are impaled.
I'm so shooketh by
I know.
Just this whole, oh my god.
So as like Radu and his men, this is kind of like a myth. No one can confirm this for sure. Radu and his men were surrounding the castle, like looking to take it. And according to legend, Vlad's first wife was still there. No one even knows like her name. She stated that she would rather die than be captured by the Ottomans and flung herself off a cliff into the river. So again, no one knows if this really happened or not. No one even knows his first wife's name. Don't know.
How many wives did he have?
2.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Vlad and his men were making their way to Chilia after Prince Stephen. Okay, so you remember how I didn't even include like half of all the convoluted bullshit political nonsense that was happening, like people taking and leaving the throne and being usurped and reinstated. Like it, literally, I had to cut out like a whole paragraph of like. Then after Vlad's first rule, there was like 4 other people, and it's just nonsense. Anyway. So remember Prince Stephen, who Vlad had helped ascend the Moldovan throne?
Yes.
Well, Stephen tried to conquer the city of Chilia, which is still in like Romania. He was like, hey, I'm going to conquer your land now, cuz. And so Vlad had to, like, run to Chilia to, like, defend it, and ended up fighting with Stephen and wounded him. I don't know if he killed him, but it just said he wounded him. No
what
details.
A fucked up family.
It really is. So Vlad had made his way back to Hungary to meet with Corvinus and plan his attack. He ended up getting to Wallachia, but was inevitably betrayed by Corvinus. Corvinus is just doing his own fucking thing, I guess.
Big shock. He didn't come to your aid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Vlad was captured and brought back to Hungary, where he was imprisoned and accused of siding with the Ottomans. No one really knows why Corvinus betrayed Vlad, but one thought was that he had aspirations to become the next Holy Roman Emperor and wanted to cease conflict with the Ottomans. And when Vlad was captured, this essentially ended the Crusades against the Ottoman Empire at this time. Corvinus eventually fought against the actual Holy Roman Emperor Frederick III, but he lost, and he actually never became the Holy Roman Emperor. But he did become King of Hungary in 1464.
Okay.
So, right, we are nearing the end. We're almost there. So, Vlad was imprisoned in Hungary from 1462 to 1466, probably. Again, details are sketchy.
Right.
He eventually fell within Corvinus's good graces again, and actually met a woman named Ilona Szilágyi. Ilona Szilágyi was the king's cousin.
Oh. So
they met, and the two married after Vlad converted to Catholicism, because he was Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
It was very likely he was released around the time they got married, because it wouldn't really look so good if the king's cousin married an imprisoned man. And they ended up having 2 children together, Vlad Tepalus and another Mircea, named after, I guess, his oldest brother. He also had 1 or maybe 2 children from his very first marriage.
Mm-hmm.
He had a son named Mina the Bad.
Damn.
And he ended up ruling Wallachia from 1508 to 1509 and was eventually assassinated. Mircea died from illness in 1482, and he had an illegitimate son named Radu. They're all named after each other, so that's not confusing at all.
Yeah.
And one of Vlad's eventual grandsons, Alexander II, was as cruel as his grandfather.
Oh,
so,
it's hereditary.
Yeah. And in a couple of the books I was reading, it was going into like what happened after he ended up passing away and all the nonsense. I was like, no, I can't. My eyes were crossing of like,
yeah,
this one was ruling, and then this one died, and then this one was ruler, and he was betrayed by his brother, and then he was ruler, and I was just like, no, I can't. So Vlad, after he married Ilona and lived his life for a little bit, he had his eyes on the prize, again, the kingdom of Wallachia.
Yeah.
He teamed up with Stephen V of Baltry. He was a military commander and judge royal, which I don't know what that means, and Stephen later became a voivode of Transylvania. And this is not his cousin Stephen. This is a different Stephen.
Different Stephen.
But I think also his cousin, but not the same Stephen.
What?
I know. Radu the Handsome, Vlad's younger brother, ruled Wallachia for a while, but was usurped by Basarab the Elder in 1473, and then Radu died in 1475. When Vlad and Stephen V showed up, Basarab and his men were like, peace, and I got the hell out of there. He was like, nah. I'm good. I don't want to be impaled.
No thanks.
So Stephen announced that Vlad was the new ruler of Wallachia, and then he went back to Transylvania. And then the Ottomans were like, hey, no. I didn't see how big this Turkish force was, but Vlad had fewer than 4,000 men to go against them. And it did not go well.
No.
So again, after only a 2-month rule, he was once again defeated in 1477. So there are different theories on how he died. Again, because nothing is straightforward. So one theory is that he was killed fighting the Ottomans that invaded. There's another theory that he was betrayed by Wallachian nobles and killed. There is a theory that he was accidentally killed by one of his own men while hunting. And Antonio Bonfini, a Turkish chronicler, wrote that Vlad was beheaded and his head was sent to Constantinople and then encased in honey and displayed.
Honey. I don't even know what to say right now.
It's a lot, I know. But we are almost done. Most records point to his death being before January 10th, 1477. Again, no one knows exactly when he died or how he died. He was around the age of about 44, 45-ish.
Okay.
Also, no one knows where his body is. No one knows. It's a mystery.
What?
There is a theory that he was buried by Basarab in the Comena monastery Vlad had built about 10 years prior. There is a theory he was buried at the Snagov monastery near Bucharest. And this monastery was more of a torture chamber and prison than a monastery.
What?
I'm not going to go into the details because they were horrifying.
What was wrong with the medieval times? What the fuck?
A lot.
God dang.
I know. So apparently in 1931, a casket was discovered in the Snagov monastery that was covered in a purple shroud, and the corpse within had been wearing silk brocade that was similar to what appeared in a painting of Vlad. Sewn on the sleeve was a crown similar to what was used by the Order of the Dragon.
Oh.
The casket and corpse were sent to the History Museum of Bucharest, where they both disappeared and have never been found. They just lost this whole ass casket and body.
Is it lost or is it lost?
I'm curious about that. I was wondering that too, but I didn't see anything else about that. There is another theory that Vlad was kidnapped and held for ransom by his daughter Maria, who is possibly from his first marriage, in Italy, and he eventually passed away and was buried at the Church of Santa Maria Nova. But that theory is widely disregarded, as the book, I think it was a hourly history book, said. There's an amateur historian and student archaeologist that were disregarded for this theory. And there is a belief that he still roams the earth as an undead man, continuing to torture victims to this day.
As a vampire?
Possibly. Don't know. I'll talk about vampires very briefly in just a second.
Okay.
So his legacy, again, he's known as a very good strategist. It can be hard to define what actually happened and what was just written after the fact because, in Romania, he's seen as a loyal hero, working to destroy corruption, or the evil sadistic ruler who enjoyed torture and murder. He's seen as both in Romania and in some parts of Europe, especially Germany, John Hunyadi and Matthias Corvinus, kind of went on a smear campaign of Vlad and were he was horrible, even though, he was already horrible. I don't know if you need to exaggerate what he did even more, but the sources I saw said that while he was awful, some of the things may be exaggerated.
Yeah.
Don't know. We weren't there. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about vampires, because then we're going to talk about Dracula.
Woo.
The origins of the vampire mythos come from Slavic and Greek countries. These started as someone who was undead. They wore rags, terrorized the former village when they were alive. The first account of a vampire being around was in 1672 in Croatia. So several hundred years after Vlad.
Okay.
The beliefs in vampires started increasing in the 1700s, and there are even 2 official government accounts of 2 different vampires in Serbia, I think in the mid to late 1700s. But again, these weren't the blood-sucking vampires. These were just undead people terrorizing. The modern version of vampires that we think of today didn't really come about until the 1800s. So they still had a ways to go.
Right.
So burials found in these areas dating back to the 1700s include corpses with sickles placed at their necks or hips. So there was a sickle that would be placed across the neck of a corpse. So if they went to go stand up or sit up in their casket, their head would just be chopped off. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the sickle across the waist. If the dead body tried to get up, no, you can't.
Yeah.
They would also cut the knee tendons of the deceased, so their legs wouldn't work if they arose. And one part of the vampire mythos that emerged around this time was that vampires are compelled to count, which I couldn't stop laughing about because when you think about it, on Sesame Street, there's a vampire who counts.
A two, a three. He's literally called the Count.
I know. So apparently there were some corpses that were found with like a lot of really small things like poppy seeds or rice or sand, because apparently there's this belief that vampires are compelled to count when there's a lot of something. And I listened to a mythological podcast, and I think they're talking about, they do like creatures of the week, which is like a little segment, and it's like, oh, this little thing. There's multiple belief systems around the world where there's like a vampire-esque sort of creature, and then you put something to like protect yourself. Like, I think this is like the Philippines or maybe Italy, I don't remember, but you put like a colander in front of your door, and the monster will like count the holes in the colander, and it will keep them occupied like all night long.
Well, it sounds like the Rougarou in New Orleans. Like, the Rougarou, I think you have to put out 11 of something, like 11 coins, because he can't count past 10. Mm-hmm. So,
I don't know what it is about counting in monsters.
I don't know.
But...
it's weird.
Okay, so that's just a little bit about vampires. This episode's already going to be a lot, so I didn't want to go too deep into, like, the probably very lengthy history of vampires. So now we're going to move on to a man named Bram Stoker, who was born in 1847 in Clontarf, Dublin. He was born in the midst of famine, massive death, an exodus from Ireland. Like 1 million people died and 1 million people left Ireland because of this horrible famine. He was kind of sickly as a kid. He stayed indoors most of the time, but there he found a love of reading. One of his favorite topics to read about was the Leananshi, which are Gaelic female vampires. He was super into that subject. Also, as he got older, he became friends with Oscar Wilde and Walt Whitman.
What?
Pretty cool. Yeah, he was like pen pals with them.
That's cool.
Just cash.
Super cash.
So, jumping super forward again, I didn't get a lot into his life because we've already been talking about a lot. So, in the 1870s, he started writing about vampires and other supernatural themes. And then we get to the fated year 1897. His book was originally called The Dead Undead, but then was released, I guess, by his publisher, Constable, Dracula.
Ooh.
And also this book just happened to also be released like after the Jack the Ripper murders in Whitechapel had been terrorizing London. Then he releases Dracula.
What a scary time.
Oh, I know. Apparently his mother, Charlotte, raved about his book. This was a quote in the, I think, hourly history book I read, quote, "No book since Mrs. Shelley's Frankenstein, or indeed any other at all, has come near yours in originality or terror. Poe is nowhere."
Damn.
His mama loved his book.
Okay, that's a supportive mama right there.
It is a supportive mama.
Because if it was me, I'd be like, I'm scared, and I love you, and I support you, but I don't think I'm going to read it.
She was all about it. Critics, however, weren't quite as impressed when Dracula was released. And it's not really his fault. Like, he had a whole nother story written. But then when it was released, there was like 100 pages that were just like gone from the final like manuscript.
What
I
happened?
guess like, I think the publisher interfered with the story. There's a Time magazine article I read that was talking about like what the original story was and then what was released were not the same. And eventually the original manuscript was found with those like 100 pages that were missing.
Wow.
So how does Dracula the novel coincide with Vlad Dracula the Impaler? So there's, again, different theories. The prevailing theory is that Bram Stoker was really into, like, again, like the vampirism, kind of the darker side of history, and he was researching the conflict in Wallachia and ended up researching Vlad the Impaler. And he took Dracula from his last name as, like, the name of his character.
Right.
The character Dracula is not based on Vlad the Impaler. Vlad did not drink blood or have vampiric tendencies. He was just a monster, but wasn't a vampire. So there's some theories that he just like saw the name and he's like, this will be a great name for a vampire. And then there's other theories that he was really into researching like the history of Wallachia.
Yeah.
And Transylvania. Both of these theories were supported in that Time magazine article I read from 2018. Yeah. And then I stumbled up across another one that said that he was inspired to write Dracula after he heard stories from his mother, who had survived a horrible cholera outbreak when she was a child. Like, it devastated the town that she lived in, the village. And there was, like, a mass grave to, like, hold all of the bodies of people that had passed away. And that was when, like, when she was telling him about this, and, like, later on, he got inspired by, like, burying something that wasn't dead.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Dracula. And that's all I got.
What a horrifying episode.
I know. It was terrible.
Oh my God. I'm stressed.
Yeah, I'm sorry that it's like super late at night for us.
Oh yeah, it's 11:20 right now.
Yeah. Maybe watch like a Charlie Chaplin movie before going to bed and like laughing at him falling down.
Maybe.
Yeah, I thought of doing this and I was like, well, it's October and it's spooky and scary season. Like, why not write about something so horrible while we're in this time? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it totally counts.
And there's vampires.
And we're all horrified. So that's what, yeah. No, it's a good episode. It's a solid episode.
Thank you.
Maybe for you true crime girlies, it's a little easier to...
I mean, I had a hard time. Like, I had to take multiple breaks from reading my books because I was like, this is too much for me. Like, and again, like, I did not go into detail. I kept everything as generic as I could.
I'm not
I mean, I probably could have made it more generic, but...
I have seen a very, very long time ago and a like documentary on Vlad the Impaler, and they went into great detail.
Mm-hmm.
So this was enough to get like what it is,
the horror
of it, without being like, okay, I feel like I can separate myself enough from the pictures. Like, I don't need to. I can move on from it.
Yeah, that was my goal. Like, definitely like the horror of it, because oh my God, like, this is the worst, but like not make people nauseous like I was when I was reading it.
The medieval times were just so bad.
They were not great for anyone. How did we survive this long? When just people were just being killed so much.
Well, yeah, and not even on top of just like Vlad killed a bunch of people, but like
the plague was going on.
Diseases, yes, the plague, diseases. How do we not wipe ourselves off the face of the earth?
I don't know. We damn sure have tried very hard to do
very hard. Yeah. What the fuck?
Anyway, I have an idea for another episode that I think will also be a little grim, but not like as horrible.
Yeah.
Like, still perfect for spooky season. Still interesting. I'll have to look more into my next idea. But I don't think it'll be as like tragic. It's not gonna be like happy, but it's not gonna be tragic like this.
I think
what's in my head is.
I think I know what my next one is, and if I can get the book read, it's gonna be tragic.
Yeah,
so,
I know which one, because you told me about the book you got. Oh no.
Yeah. So
I hope you do cover it though.
I'll do my best to get through the book without dying. We'll see.
I'll figure it out. All right, let's do socials.
Yeah, okay. If you survived this, go to our Facebook,
Ill-Equipped History podcast group and page,
our Instagram,
at Ill-Equipped History,
TikTok,
at Ill-Equipped History,
Gmail,
ill-equippedhistory@gmail.com,
and Patreon.
patreon.com/ill-equippedhistory. And as we said last week, we have a special surprise for our Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, so subscribe and we will send you a little bonus along with the stickers that we normally send. So looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And if you haven't checked out the new bonus episode for this month, it is free to everyone. So hop on there. It's the Brushy Mountain State Pen Paranormal Investigation.
Still so scary.
I was going to say, Morgan's still dying.
I am. I'm never getting over it.
Apparently, this is the month of scarring ourselves. So
it's October, baby. It is spooky season. Time
Yes.
for horror and gore and death and ghosts.
And stress.
Yeah. Very, very much stress. I did finally decorate. I mean, it's still September when we're recording this, but I did put up my Halloween decorations. And it was so nice.
I had mine up for this last book club meeting, so we get 2 months of my spooky decorations in my house. Yeah, and I got my inflatables out in the yard, so I have my ghosts and my pumpkins and my witch.
Cute.
Yeah. And I made, y'all, I'm gonna leave us on a happy note real quick.
You should.
I went to Goodwill and I bought a little dollhouse, and over the past month I've been making it very spooky. So I painted it black and I put moss and I got vines to put on it, and I got little spooky furniture to put inside, and I put wallpaper on the walls, and I got real crafty. I got flooring on it. It's real cute, and
it looks so good.
I'll post a video on TikTok about it or something because it's really cute and it has working street lights.
She did such a good job, you guys. Like, Crafty Mom of the Year. Faux show.
And I made it for myself, but my daughter really likes, the kids love to play in it. They'll like take the little ghost statue I have and little skeleton cat and like move the furniture around, and the lights are always turned on. We're going to go through batteries like nobody's business, but it's fine.
We're having fun with it.
I know, they love it. So it was totally worth it. And everything's on there is replaceable. So whatever.
Yeah. Well, thank you for leaving us on this cute little happy note. You brought us in with the wholesome, and you're taking us out with the wholesome. So
That's
thank
what
you,
I'm
Emily.
here for. Wholesome kid content.
So, yeah, make yourself a little spooky haunted house for your dwelling.
Yeah, and don't impale people.
Yeah, I feel like it's a pretty easy thing.
Yeah.
To not do is
y'all. The
impale
bar
people.
is so low.
It's
don't
literally
impale
the
people.
easiest thing. I've never impaled anyone in my life, so
No. I have accidentally stabbed myself in the hand, but like,
but that's not impaling. Like, stabbing
No.
and impaling's different.
no big posts impaling. Where would you get the horses anyway? So like,
Horses are expensive.
they're expensive. And like, how would you explain that to someone if you needed to borrow their horses for impaling purposes? It's like, it's so out of your way. Don't do it.
Yeah, no. There's so many other things to do rather than impaling. Like making your own adorable little haunted house.
Exactly. And if you thrift it for $1.99 and then buy $1 million worth of craft supplies, it's basically free. It's free. That's girl math. And you're welcome for that. I thrifted the main part of it, so it was free.
Yeah, the crafts don't cost anything.
No, especially if you get them half off.
Yeah, there you go.
So, which I did because I'm thrifty. Okay, we should go.
Let's go.
Okay, bye!